This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service. Manx Radio! November, the season of Remembrance, and in church life, this weekend commemorates All Saints and All Souls Days. And on our notice board later, I'll have details of some special services later today, which give us a chance to pause and remember those that we have loved and lost in this life. Someone who knows all too well about love and loss joins me this morning to take up a story that began just about a year ago in a joyous ceremony in York Minster, when the Rt Rev'd Tricia Hillas was ordained and consecrated as the next Bishop of Sodor and Man. At the reception that followed, Bishop Tricia singled out her husband Andrew for special mention, thanking him for his selfless support and constant encouragement in all the different stages of her ministry, and in particular this appointment that would take them from London to the island they already knew well and loved dearly. Their shared joy, their excitement at this new stage in life was so very obvious. But the reality of the past year could not have been more different. Tricia, good morning and welcome, and thank you for your willingness to talk. Many people are aware that a deep personal tragedy marks your first year on the island. Would you feel able to tell us a little more about that, please?
Certainly. Andrew and I had been so glad to come to the island, and it really was the beginning of a new phase of life for both of us. And Andrew had already started to make connections here and was delighted to be connecting with a range of people and willing to offer his service into various parts of the island's life, and had been keen to be out walking and out and about on our hills. And actually, that takes me to Easter Day. And Andrew had been up early with the people of Dalby and that area for a sunrise service up in the hills, and had come back full of joy, but also aware that he was feeling a little bit more breathless than he might have expected. He was, someone who walked. We both hiked together. That Easter Day afternoon, I left to go to spend some time with a Jewish organisation in Poland together. We visited some of the sites associated with the Holocaust. It was a very profound trip. And Andrew and I kept in touch, sharing our thoughts about how things were going for him here and me in Poland. But when I came back a few days later, Andrew picked me up at the airport, and there was just something that Andrew started saying about really not feeling so well. And that was not him. He'd had literally one day off sick in his entire working life. So we persuaded him to go to the GP, and he had his very first medical appointment, on the 1st of May. And then things developed from there. Many people who've been through this will understand the times of uncertainty, the waiting for decisions, waiting for the results of tests, and desperately trying to find out what was happening. We'd been over to Liverpool, and many of you will have done that journey, and we'd been told that it might be possible that if he had treatment, he might have 18 months. We knew there was a limit to his life. Without treatment, maybe 9 months. There was something about time that happened, and there just wasn't enough time, really. And so it was that despite everybody's efforts, Andrew died on the 10th of June. So it's been a journey, and there's lots that can be said about that. A key thing is that Andrew had said, with the care of hospice, and particularly hospice at home, we were able to make sure he was in the place that he wanted to be. Spent some time in Nobles, but ultimately was able to be at home, where he said that it was a place that he felt was full of peace and he felt surrounded by love, and that was not just from me.
A dreadful roller coaster of emotions in a very, very short space of time. Now, you don't have to have this conversation with me. So why do you want to put yourself through this, to talk about this?
I think it's a timely moment as I'm returning to ministry in a fuller way. And of course, this weekend, as we keep the Feasts of All Saints and the Feast of All Souls, churches right across the ages have remembered how we're connected to one another, those who are alive and serving God now, but also those who've gone before us. And so it is a time when we remember those whom we love and whom we've entrusted to God's keeping. I think for all of us, going through grief can feel very isolating. It can feel that we're battling alone, and other people will have gone through this journey ahead of me. And so I really wanted to be able to voice some of the things we sometimes find hard to say. And yet the irony is nearly all of us will go through a similar situation. So I wanted to make sure that this was a public conversation, that others who right now or maybe in the future will be going through similar things or might have recently will know that our journeys are seen, that they're important, that they're something that we can speak to. And the other reason is that actually so many people across the island have been so kind from the point of Andrew's first diagnosis. You know, the cards, the letters, the notes through the door, the flowers, the assurance of prayers, the gifts and the kindness, the food that was brought for Andrew and for me. And it's just been an overwhelming, enveloping cloud of love, really, from so many people. And I just wanted to take a moment as I'm returning more fully to ministry to say thank you.
I think it's true to say that every single person who heard about your situation, heard about Andrew, was praying. You must have prayed for Andrew's healing.
Did I pray for Andrew to be healed? Yes, absolutely yes. Do I understand why that prayer wasn't answered in the most obvious way I would have wanted it to be? No, absolutely no. And yet, I know that in that time, both he and he would say it, he said it, you know, just how palpable that sense of being held in people's prayers and the difference that made to him and to me. Sometimes Christians talk lightly of, you know, the peace that passes understanding that Jesus promises. And yet there was echoes of that in our experience. And so how do I hold these two things together? You know, did I pray? Did the response come in a way I thought and hoped it might? And yet it comes down to me to trusting in the one to whom our prayers are addressed.
How long will I have to hear the stories of how you were able? How long will I have to celebrate the miracle that's not my own? How long will I lift my voice and sing again that you are always good when I'm feeling all this distance that I thought I never would? How long?
Sometimes I know that actually I don't have the whole picture, but I do trust the God who I believe does. And there is a family story, actually, which might just illustrate a bit of this. It's a family story back to my grandparents in Malaysia. And my grandmother was a great swimmer. My grandfather didn't swim at all. And my grandmother had gone out swimming. You can imagine it's a tropical beach. It's sunset. It's the time when sharks are out. And she's out from shore. My grandfather was on the beach. And the family story goes that he saw a fin. And he didn't want to alarm her. He just said, "Agnes, come here. Come here." And because it was him, she did it. And she didn't ask questions. Who knows whether there was a shark out there? But there is something for me about, she didn't know why, She did it because she trusted him.
As long as it takes for my heart to find its song, as long as it takes to know that I'm still not alone, and at the end of the day, I will stand right here and say, I know that you love me. Miracle or not.
Andrew and I, we met when we were both within the Methodist Church, and there's a prayer that the Methodists have given to the wider church, which is so beautiful. It's called the Covenant Prayer, and it talks about offering ourselves to God in our entirety, and it includes these words: I'm no longer my own but yours. Put me to what you will, rank me with whom you will, put me to doing, put me to suffering. Let me be employed for you or laid aside for you, exalted for you or brought low for you. Let me be full, let me be empty, let me have all things, let me have nothing. I freely and wholeheartedly yield all things to you. And now, glorious and blessed God, Father, Son and Holy Spirit, you are mine and I am yours. So be it. And Andrew and I would have both prayed that prayer. And I think that's at the heart of it, really, that just in trusting ourselves, whatever life would bring, it's been part of our journey. And to be absolutely honest, Andrew died aged 64, and that's a good life. And many, many, many people get a fraction of that. So actually, I live between the despair and sadness and the gratitude for what we've had.
I will sing it till my broken heart believes it. With my hands held high, I'll scream it in the darkness till hope is finally louder than the ache. I know that you love me. Miracle or not.
You could have had a private funeral and everybody would have understood, and yet you were willing to share that in person in the cathedral or watching the live stream of Andrew's funeral. Tell us about how that took shape for you, Tricia, would you?
Like many, our lives are scattered, and we've travelled and been part of different communities. And actually each community shapes us, doesn't it? And we shape those communities. And in part, I think a funeral can allow the bringing together of those different communities. And for me, that was a real source of beauty in Andrew's funeral, that it wasn't just about me as an individual or even Andrew's immediate other family members, of whom many travelled. But actually it was each community who had helped shape Andrew himself, who had helped him grow and who had nurtured him, as well as him speaking into them. And there were people there from St Paul's Cathedral or Westminster Abbey or Westminster Parliament, or from the community in Northolt where we had served, people who'd worked alongside him. And I think that says a lot to me about actually what it means to be human. One of the reasons we wanted the funeral to be available online was because not everybody could travel. And yet a number of people wanted to be part of it. And those included, again, friends who we've travelled with, friends in the States, family in Malaysia. And again, it all speaks to this fact that, no man is an island, said John Donne, but that actually we are shaped by one another and we belong to one another and are formed by one another. So in a way, that was part of it. And Andrew, I think, was one of those people who very quietly, I'm the gabby one, he so discreetly and quietly got on with doing amazing things. And actually to have the opportunity to celebrate that together and to hear from one another was really powerful. We talk about we've come together in our grief. That's one of the opening cadences of the funeral service. But it says to sort of bring ourselves together, to bring our grief and to commend this person to God. Some of us shared Andrew's faith. Some of us may not have, but wanted to be there. That was part of what we were doing as well, honouring his life, but also entrusting him and taking hold of those phrases, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me will never perish, but have eternal life. That's something Andrew lived by, and that's what he wanted for others, that they would have life and life to the full. So it was a way of restating all of that and reminding ourselves of it. I know that there have been changes and not everybody these days chooses to have a funeral, and I respect those individual decisions, but what I'd want people to know, whether they are a church member or their loved one was or wasn't, that the church is there for them, that they are part of a community that is prayed for and cared for. And so their parish church or any of the other denominations would want to be there to support them on the day of the funeral and before, in the lead up and afterwards. None of us need to do this alone. And we believe that really that ministry and welcome of God is there for anyone who wishes to have it. And I know, speaking for each of the churches, we would love to be able to support you.
Everybody's grief journey is individual and very personal. What has helped you to get through each day?
I do agree. Everyone's journey is different. And actually, I don't think any one journey has only one direction. So my own journey, it's been a roller coaster, and it still is in many ways. But for me, there have been elements of sheer determined getting on with some of what I've been describing to people as the death admin, as anyone who's had to sort out the affairs of someone who's died knows that can be really tricky. Some organisations have been absolutely brilliant and others have been distinctly less so, and that's really sad. And I'd love to encourage those who have the ability to help shape the response of bureaucracies and organisations, who have the ability to shape it for good and compassion to do that. I'd like to kind of commend our own on the island, the steam packet, just the care and compassion that one of the members of the steam packet team showed to me, who had no idea who I was, but was just so kind. And at that moment, it makes all the difference in the world. So the kindness of people helped me get through the love and compassion, and the people who literally pitched up and said, right, I'm going for a walk, are you coming? And would not take no for an answer. And the people who just gave me space when they realised actually to do that would be important. That's been so helpful. The people across the island within the churches and colleagues within the churches, the senior team in the diocese who just helped hold things while I needed to take some time aside, have been so, so kind. And people from right across the island who may not even have met me were so brilliant. And I also should say my Tynwald colleagues were so gracious, so kind, sent cards, sent gifts. And the fact that Tynwald itself, the two houses, paused and started their sittings at a delayed hour to be able to attend Andrew's funeral was a great kindness. So all of that is to do with how people have responded, which has been so gracious. But also there's something about this place. Andrew loved it. I love it. The significance of going swimming in the sea, sitting in a sauna on one of our beaches, walking in the hills, going along with a small group of others to walk the pilgrimage, the Triskelion Way, just having roots and prayerful abiding in the island has been really profound. So a great sense of healing from that. And there's a long way to go, I know. And everyone tells me grieving is tiring, actually, and that's jolly true. But actually that and being held, and sometimes I think that being held really allowed me to feel that was God holding me, because, Andrew and I did pray. We said night prayer together in these last weeks of his life, and I would be praying for him while he was asleep. But there are times also when actually it was almost impossible to voice prayer, and so being held by the prayers of others has been really powerful.
As long as it takes for my heart to find its song, as long as it takes to know that hope is never gone, and at the end of the day, I will stay right here and say, I know that you love me. I know that you love me. I know that you love me. Miracle or not.
Tricia, you spoke very openly about praying for Andrew's healing and that prayer not being answered in the way that you had hoped. So now, what have you learned, or are you still learning, about your own faith?
Well, not long after I arrived, I was invited to share with the Island Spirituality Network, and I felt compelled to explore the concept of setting sail with God. And I think that has been a theme that's resonated both as I was coming to the island and as Andrew was coming, as we were journeying together, but also entering into this sort of unknown voyage of faith now. I mean, I had previously experienced the death of both my parents at different points. One, my father when I was taking my A-levels, and my mother just before I was ordained. And I've also accompanied people as a social worker and as a priest. I've had the privilege of holding people as they've died, of praying with them and with their family at their bedside. And I know that everybody's journey is different. And for me, the experience is still unfolding, actually. So this is still a question about what I am still learning about faith. And bringing it back to that idea of setting sail with God is something about being cast adrift, not into the unknown, although it's unknowable to me, but cast adrift somehow beyond my own ability to control where I land, the currents, the tides. And if you're listening to that, you can't help but think about Macolt and his journey that brought him here. My childhood was full of the stories of C.S. Lewis and the example of right at the end of the Dawn Treader, Reapy Cheap passing on from the life of Narnia to what was to come, being set adrift and being drawn towards the dawn and hope and resurrection. So for me, faith it's the undergirding, it's the love of God, which is like that deep, deep, deep ocean that's holding me up. And yet I'm being cast adrift into it. And I trust myself to the current of God because I trust in the one to whom we pray. So what does that mean about heaven? What does it mean about life that is to come? What does it mean about hope? And I feel that I'm held, buoyed up, being taken deeper and deeper and deeper into that relationship of love, of faith, of resurrection, hope, of the dawn towards which Reapy Cheap goes, and the way C.S. Lewis describes it, the ocean itself becomes sweet and it's like golden light. So that hopefulness that comes, and yet I don't control the destination. I have to be able to say, you've brought me this far. I trust myself to you. And very early on, I came across a prayer of Brendan the Navigator. And that prayer says, help me to journey beyond the familiar and into the unknown. Give me the faith to leave the old ways, no matter how hard I wish I could hold on to them, and break fresh ground with you. Christ of the mysteries, I trust you to be stronger than each storm within me. I will trust in the darkness, and I know that my times, even now, are in your hand. tune my spirit to the music of heaven, and somehow make my obedience count for you. I think Andrew did want to live. He had a lot that he was hoping to give. But I also know that he did trust to the end, and that was a gift given to him of trust. And actually, the night before he died, he had wanted to have a conversation with me. You know, we'd covered lots of things, very practical things. You know, where's the car insurance kept? All those things. He wanted to make sure I had everything in place that I needed to deal with things after he was gone. But he was insistent he wanted to have a conversation. And for about 45 minutes, he just took the time to say things to me that one human being who's lived with another human being for 40 years would want to say, you know, about what's been important, what he has valued, our life together, his hopes for me after he was gone. There was a depth to that, which was a real gift of his to do that. And so everything anyone said at the funeral about how Andrew had affected their life for the good, I mean, I know that's to be true for me. So he not only had that peace, but he had the ability to share it even in that last few hours. So where does that peace come from? It comes from direct sense of God's grace, and through the ministry and the love extended by others right till the last moment. Others gave gifts to him. So our friends whose music was played at the service, they will both know they're not people of faith. And they, in their gift to Andrew, had said, what would you like us to record for you? They're an amazing folk duo. And he'd sort of thought for overnight and said, abide with me, which was quite extraordinary. I would not have guessed that would be what he would ask. And they, lo and behold, spent time rehearsing it and actually produced the most beautiful version, which literally came by phone to us the afternoon that Andrew died. And so we were able to play it for him to listen to in those last hour or so of his life.
Abide with me, past falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless soul, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. What but thy grace can foil the tempter's power? Who like thyself my guide and strength can be? Through cloud and sunshine, oh, abide with me.
Tricia, during your period of compassionate leave, there was a question, an unspoken question that hung in the air. Would you, in fact, return to your role as the Bishop of Sodor and Man? Everything that you'd started off together with Andrew was so changed that maybe you would feel that you would have to leave the island and develop your ministry somewhere completely different, just in order to survive. So how did you cope with that?
Well, to know that people were being so kind as to actually even ask the question in their own heart is actually a really kind thing to do, because it shows that degree of openness to allowing God to speak directly to me and to Andrew about what the future would hold. So if that had crossed someone's mind, I'm really grateful. And I'm even more grateful, Judith, that you're posing it, really, because I think having honest conversations in challenging times is absolutely where ministry and faith is. So a fellow bishop spoke to me fairly early on when Andrew was diagnosed, and when we knew he had only a short lifespan left, and just posed the question, gave permission really to even ponder, is this the right place to be? And, effectively said there is no shame in saying, you obeyed God's call and this might now be different. And so there could be a different journey. So I feel that both that comment and the question that people have held for me has allowed me to be very open to what I think God is calling me to do. And I know Andrew said it in the deep conversation we had the night before he died, that his sense was actually God had called us both here and me here for a particular purpose. And so far as it's within my ability, I want to respond to that call through ministering here for all of the island people.
Oh, though thy Christ before my closing eyes, shine through the gloom and point me to the skies. Heaven's morning breaks and earth's vain shadows flee. In life and death, O Lord, abide with me.
That's the folk duo Naomi Bedford and Paul Simmons, and the recording made as a gift for Andrew Hillas at his request immediately prior to his death. Other music during the programme was Miracle or Not by Lou Fellingham. And my sincere thanks to Bishop Tricia for sharing those very personal thoughts today. And do please listen to the podcast of this programme, because there's more from Bishop Tricia that I simply couldn't fit into the programme. You'll find it available now at manxradio.com under the Podcasts tab on the homepage, or via your usual podcast provider. And now let's end with our usual look at our notice board. I mentioned earlier that there are special services today for All Souls Day, and these are the ones that I know about. This afternoon in Bigarrow Chapel on the main road outside Kirkmichael village, there's a service of Taizé-style worship this afternoon at 2:30. Everyone's welcome to come and light a candle for remembrance, join in singing some simple, prayerful Taizé chants, and stay for refreshments afterwards. There's an All Souls Day service this afternoon at 3:00 in Mackeld Parish Church, led by Reverend Ian Foles. And also this afternoon at 3:00 in the Abbey Church in Ballasalla, Reverend Ruth Walker will lead a service entitled Not Forgotten, a quiet space to remember loved ones, to give thanks for their lives, and light a candle in their memory. And Reverend Ruth says, don't forget this coming Friday the 7th of November, it's First Friday Soup, the monthly lunch in the Abbey Church Hall right next to the church in Ballasalla. Homemade soup, bread, treats, fruit and hot drinks, served from 12 noon to 1:30, with the option of a fun quiz. There's no set charge, it's the anonymous brown envelope system. Eat as you wish and pay what you can. Everyone is welcome. And the Remembrance service next Sunday, the 9th, in the Abbey Church, will be at the earlier than usual time of 10 a.m, followed by an act of remembrance at the War Memorial on Bridge Road. Back to this afternoon, and at 3:00, Gareth Moore will give a concert of organ music in Trinity Methodist Church at Rosemount here in Douglas. Admission is free, the church will be warm and welcoming, and there'll be refreshments served afterwards. Do not miss, says the publicity. And something else not to be missed is the Mariners service this evening at 6:30. It's in Port Erin Methodist Church. Reader Nigel Cretney will preach, and as usual you're invited to stay on for supper and community hymn singing afterwards. News now from St Thomas's Church here in Douglas, just off the promenade near the Gaiety Theatre. Reverend Liz Hull says everyone is welcome at their regular coffee mornings every Friday from 10:30 till 12 noon. And this Friday, the 7th, there'll be lunch too, served from noon till 1:30. And the Remembrance Day service in St Thomas's is next Sunday the 9th at 10 o'clock. Poetry, music and lots of cake are all on offer at Broadway Baptist Church here in Douglas next Saturday evening to celebrate the launch of a new book of poems by Michael Manning, the 8th Manx Bard, who's well known to many for his years of work with the charity Gry. Michael will be joined by special guests including Annie Kissack, Phil Gaughan and Adele Harris. The book launch starts at 7:30 next Saturday evening, and thanks to support from Culture Vannin, Michael is able to give away copies of his new book for free. And in fact, Michael will be joining me on our local music feature on Sundown this evening at 11:15 to tell us more about the book and the launch at Broadway Baptist Church here in Douglas next Saturday evening at 7:30. But that's all that we have time for now. Don't forget to listen to the podcast of this programme for more conversation with Bishop Tricia. It's available now at manxradio.com or via your usual podcast provider. And I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock with Sundown. Come and join me in our virtual lounge for easy listening music, lots more notice board news, plus your requests and dedications. I'd love you to join me if you can. And so, till whenever we meet again, this is Judith saying thank you for listening and wishing you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week and a very good morning.